I'm going to explain you how to perform file or folder operations using AutomationAnywhere. Let's try to understand what is file or folder operations. If you consider a contact center or a BPO, generally people do a lot of operations on files, folders, just that like moving files from one folder to another folder, or copying files, or renaming files, or zipping files, unzipping, and also they can perform quite a few operations like printing files, etc., etc. So considering such operations, if you consider a typical automation or a specific use case, in a call center on an average anywhere close to 1500 to 2000 files per day, if a person is moving around and doing this operation, automating such effort will be a huge savings. So AutomationAnywhere provides us some kind of operations using which we can automate these things easily. To understand this, let's consider a use case. I have something called a temp folder with a few files in it, and then I want to create a folder called folder A and then move these files from temp to folder A. After moving that, I want to rename those files to test1, test2, test3. After renaming, I want to zip all those files and move to folder B. After moving to folder B, I'll be deleting folder A and then rename these zip files to a package1, and I create a shortcut on my desktop for the folder B, and then I display a message to the user saying that the success, or you can call it as a file transfer success, and then the process ends. So how do we perform this particular job? Let's try to do this using AutomationAnywhere. First, I have created my temp folder here under my documents and a folder called AI tutorials. Under temp, I created just three files, file 1, file 2, file 3. As our use case is saying, first of all, we need to create a folder A and then move these files in the temp into the folder A. So how AutomationAnywhere can help us to create a folder called A? So let's open the AutomationAnywhere, click on New, and then click on Workbench. It opens and show you multiple commands on the left side and a working area, workbench. If you consider, like on the left side, you see a files or folders group under which you have multiple options. Since our first task is to create a folder A, I'm going to choose this command called folder A. Just drag and drop here, and then it is asking us the path where I need to create this folder. In our case, we have something called documents under AI tutorials. I want to create a folder here. So I'm copying this path and then going to the AutomationAnywhere and then just pasting here. And then I also have to mention what is that folder name. So I call this as A. Let me make it caps, A. And then here there is a checkbox that is suggesting overwrite files or folders, which means in this path, if there is already a folder called A or any files in it, next time when I'm running it, it automatically overwrites it. So for my first scenario, like the first time when I'm creating, there is no such folder A. But when I run this for multiple times, probably I may have already an existing folder called A. So to be on safe side, just I'll click on this checkbox and then save. This command helps us to create a folder called A. So before we proceed, just let's save this task and say file folder ops 1 or whatever it may be. Let's call this and then save it. Now I saved this, and what it will do if I execute this is it creates a folder called A here. Let's try if it is doing or not. Just click on run button. AutomationAnywhere window pops up and runs, and then let's go to our destination back and see there is a folder called A got created, which means we have completed this particular step. Now what is our next step is I have to rename these files to test1, test2, test3. So however, before I do this, first of all I have to move these files to the folder A. So how do I move that? So in order to move those files from one folder to another folder, I have something called copy files command. After copying, probably I can delete those files. That is one way of moving. So let me try that. I'm just going with copy files. Then it'll ask me what I'm going to perform here. My source folder is temp folder. So I just click on browse, and then I go to my documents, AA tutorials, and then my temp. I'm just selecting temp. Then it'll ask me there are multiple files, which file you want. So just let me select this particular path here, copy, and then paste here. Now what files I have to copy? In this case, I want to copy everything, so I mentioned start.star wildcard. Suppose if I want to copy only doc files, start.doc. If I want to copy only Excel files, start.xls. Only text files, start.txt, like that. So in this case, I'm mentioning only start.star, which means I have to copy all files, and then this text box is asking for destination where I want to move. So obviously I have to move to the folder called A. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and then go to the documents, tutorials, and selecting this folder called A. Okay. And I also check overwrite files or folders, because when I run this operation multiple times, if there is already an existing folder A, it overwrites it. And then just click on save and save here. When I want to run this, let's try to run. Right now the folder A is empty. Now after running this particular execution, it fills with file 1, 2, 3, right? So I'm just clicking on run. So now, as I told you earlier, A is already existing, but it has overridden, it didn't throw any error to us. And then I copy files. So let's go back and see whether A is having these files. So now A has got 3 files. All right. So now now we copied files. So of course we have to move it. That means we have to delete those files. We do that at the end of the program, deleting that files in the temp folder. Before we do that, our next goal is to rename those files. So what we are saying is we have to rename those files with test1, test2, test3. So let's try to understand how we can perform this. To rename these files in a folder, right now we know that there are only file 1, file 2, file 3, but all the times we don't know. There can be any number of files that may be possible. So what we are going to do here is we want to use a loop command. So AutomationAnywhere provides us a special loop, which is nothing but for each file in a folder. That means the loop runs to the number of times equivalent to the number of files in that particular folder. So let's go here and type L. It'll take you to the, near to loop. Now you select this loop and select this for each file in a folder. Just drag in here. Now I want to select the folder, so I'll be selecting the folder path. This is in that case our path is A. Under the folder A, we are running this loop. What we are doing is, under this loop we need to perform a rename. So again, I go back to file and folders, operations. I select the rename file. In this rename file, it asks for two things. One is which files, under which folder you want to rename files. So in my case, it is A. So users, my documents, A tutorials, A. Under this folder, I need to rename what file. It is all files one by one, one by one. So I need to make use of some special variables called system variables that represents the file name and its extension. To make use of system variable, I just press F2 on my keyboard and then select a system variable called file name. Just these are in alphabetical order. If you go down, you see something called file name dot, and you have to press F2 again and select the extension. Go to the system variable called extension and mention it. So this means the loop runs on each and every file, that particular file name and that particular extension. That means the first file name and extension, second file name and extension, third file name and extension. So this file has to be renamed with test1 and its extension, test2 and its extension. To do that, what I'll do is I simply type test, and then to continuously put numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 every time the loop runs, I use a special variable called counter. Again, just press F2 here, type C here, and then go down, you find something called counter. Click on the insert button. That means this represents test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4 every time the loop runs, and dot its extension. So again, I press F2, extension here. Just keep pressing E till you see the extension and then insert. So what this will do is the loop starts for the first file, and then it picks the first file based on this file name dot extension, and then rename this to test1 dot its extension. And then second, third, this loop runs. Since currently we have 3 files, the loop runs for 3 times. If you have 300 files, it may run for 300 times. So this is a rename operation. So let's try to run whether the folder A contains, after running this, instead of having file 1, file 2, file 3, it has to have test 1, test 2, test 3. Let's run this. Now the automation run, and then I go to the A. Now you see test 1, test 2, test 3. So we have done this step successfully. Just we renamed files. Our next job is to zip all files and move to folder B. So to perform this, I go back to my AutomationAnywhere workbench. I select the zip files command, drag in here. Make sure that you're dragging outside the loop, because after renaming we are zipping all files at one shot. And then select the folder. This is nothing but our users, documents, A tutorials, A, and which files you want to zip. So you don't need to mention anything because you have selected the folder. Optionally, if you have a mixture of different types of files, you may mention the type of file. Say for example, I want to zip only doc files, then I mention star.doc. Or I want to zip only PDF files, I mention star.pdf. In this case, we have all files. We have all our text files, so we don't need to mention anything. And then where you want to specify that destination zip file. So if you take our use case, ideally after performing this, we have to move this to the folder B. So, but currently we don't have folder B. So let's do that step separately. So what we are doing is just currently I'm moving zip file to the same destination called A. So, and then I name this as zipped file dot zip. Okay, so I zip all the files and then place that zipped file under the same folder with the name called zipped.zip. Currently you have 3 files. Now after executing this, you see a zipped file with zipped.zip. Now let's save this and then run to see what happens. I just run the command. The command executed successfully. I go back to my folder. Now you see you have something called zipped file. Perfect. Now our next step is how to create a folder called B and then move the zip file to that folder B. So you already seen how to create a folder earlier under AI tutorials. A we have created. Now let's create another folder called B. For that, the command is create folder. Once if you do this, select the path where you want to create the file. So this is the path under AI tutorials. I'm selecting this, and I also mentioned the folder called B and then save it. So this creates a folder B. Let's execute later, and our job is I have to move the zip file to folder B, right? So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is first, like, I'll copy that particular folder. So very simple, just copy, and then you are going to select the folder B and then star.star. That's nothing but our zip file. Where you want to move is sorry, here it's A because our zip file is under A, and then star.star. Where you want to move here is a folder called B. So I'm just copying that folder. Now once if I execute it, there is a folder called B gets created. Under that, the zip file will be present. So let's run this. The command executed successfully. Now there is a folder called B got created, and of course there is a zip file in it. So yeah, now we have done a small mistake because in A there are already so many files. Instead of selecting star.star, I think we should select .zip so that only zip file gets moved to this particular folder. Okay, now what we're going to do here is just run this once again. So that you have a folder B under which only you have a zipped file. Okay, all right. So now just we copied, we haven't moved. That means we have to delete those files. At later we'll do that. After we folder B, just we have to delete this folder A. So what we're going to do is we use a command called delete folder, and then simply go to folder, select the folder path and A, and save it. This will delete that particular folder. After performing this, I also need to rename the zip file as package1. So I use a rename files, and then I'm selecting the folder B, and I'm selecting this particular file, and then I'm giving the new file name as package1.zip. Alright, so this particular command will rename that particular file package1 to package1.zip. Once after performing this, what I'm going to do is I have to create a shortcut to this particular folder B on my desktop. So let's try to do that. For that, you have to use the create folder shortcut, and then select the source folder. That's nothing but our folder B. So just select this folder B, and destination is our desktop because for where we are creating that particular shortcut. Save it. Once if we perform this, we have to display message as a success. So just type M here. You see something called message box. Just drag and drop. Title, let me put something file transfer, and then message success. And you also have an option to close this message box after 5 seconds. If you check this, the message box automatically gets closed. Now let's execute this. What happens? Our final result will be you will have a folder A which is copied and moved. Now we also forgot two things. After moving the files from temp to A, we haven't deleted those files. So let's delete the files under temp. For that, you can use just delete files, select the temp under 8 tutorials, and then select this path, copy paste here, star. This will delete all files under temp. And we also deleted folder A, so that means we already moved the zip file from A to B, so we really don't need to worry about it. So we have completed all the operations. Let's run this. So the output that we are expecting is we have to have temp folder as an empty, and there should be a zip file with zip with the package1.zip, and this package1.zip should contain all three files, file1, file2, file3, which is renamed as test1, test2, test3. That means package1.zip will contain test1, test2, test3. That is the final output we are expecting. So let's run this. And we got the message success, which is closing in 5 seconds. Now we go back to the output. We have a AA tutorial, temp is empty, and B has got one file package. If I double click on it, now we have a folder A which is with the test1, test2, test3. Also, we have a shortcut on desktop. Let's see if it got created. Yeah, there is a shortcut which is created on desktop that is pointing out to the package1. This concludes the folder operation. So in the similar way, you can perform, you can provide a print file command, or you may perform copy files or create file shortcut, which are similar to this. So this way, like, you can perform all file folder related operations with the different permutations and combinations and with different options exercised. That way it helps you to reduce a lot of manual effort and automate this kind of operations. Hope you like this video. Please press the like button and subscribe my channel so that you will see new tutorials very soon. Thank you for watching, and see you again.